Hi everyone, welcome to Cooking with Chef Rich. A wise man once said, "A way to a person's heart is through their stomach." Stay tuned for the best chocolate mousse cake you'll ever have. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to separate 4 large eggs. We are going to be whipping our egg whites, which means that the whites have to be kept perfectly clean. So we want to crack them into either a glass bowl or a metal bowl. You don't want to use plastic or anything that might have either oils or any type of debris in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically pull them apart. And just take the yolk and kind of go back and forth until you get all the white out, like so. We're going to put the yolks over there, and we're going to do that 4 times. So the next part of our chocolate cake, I've measured out a bunch of ingredients. We have our 4 large eggs separated. We have half a cup of all-purpose flour. We have a 1/3 cup of cocoa. I have a half a teaspoon of baking powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and an 1/8 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And the only thing I'm missing is sugar. But what we're going to do is we're going to take our flour, our cocoa, and our baking soda, baking powder, and salt, and mix it all together. And we're going to just mix this up and try not to make too much of a mess. I'm very good at making messes. You don't have to sift this though, but you do want to give it a really good mix. So when you mix it into the cake, it all gets mixed through. So I greased our baking molds. I'm using heart-shaped cake baking molds, and these are probably about 1.5 inches top to bottom and maybe 2 inches across, or 1 3/4 inches across approximately. I'm going to take our egg whites, make sure my bowl is dry and clean, and put it in here. And we're going to put this up to whip. So you notice this is getting frothy. To this, I'm going to add 1/2 cup of sugar slowly. And we want to get to about stiff peak. I'm going to leave this on high. So you'll notice that when it's mixing, you'll see waves in it, which means it's just about close to stiff peak. As it moves around, it kind of holds its shape. That means it's kind of close to stiff peak. And now we're just going to lift this up slowly. And you'll notice that it kind of stands up. So we're good. Now I'm not going to bother washing this. I'm just going to try to get all the egg white off. Same thing. Going to take all the egg whites, put it in my mixing bowl. Now once again, I'm not going to wash this. I'm going to add my egg yolks to this. And I'm going to put this up to mix. I'm going to mix it for probably about a minute, maybe a minute and a half. And then I'm going to add a 1/3 cup of sugar to this. So once this gets pale and yellow, now we're going to add 1/3 cup of sugar slowly as it's mixing. And we're going to mix it for approximately 2 minutes. All right, so you'll notice that this is nice and thick and pale. So that's good. I'm going to put this on top of our egg whites. And now I have 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I'm just going to pour in here. I have 1/3 cup of water and my flour, cocoa, salt, baking soda, baking powder mix. And I'm going to add about 1/3 of this and 1/3 of this. We're going to fold it in. Even though it's not perfect, we're going to go with another 1/3. Another 1/3. That's close enough. And now we'll add the last bit of water. Now you don't want to do this more than necessary because you're going to knock the air out of the egg whites and egg yolks. Once it's all mixed through and through, Now we're gonna, we'll see how this works. I know this is gonna make a mess, but we'll try it. We'll go probably 3/4, I'm guessing. Now you don't want to bang this because you're going to knock the air out, but we do want to move it back and forth. So they're actually a little more than 3/4, they're just about all the way filled. Let's try filling them all the way. I wonder how much it's going to rise. Now you notice that I have a lot of batter, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a cake pan. I am going to grease my cake pan and bake this off separately. I think it's an 8-inch aluminum pan. And I'm just going to bake this off. I'm sure I can do something with it. And we're going to put this in a 375-degree oven. And I'll show you what it looks like. I believe these will take probably only about 15 minutes to bake, if I'm not mistaken, but I'll let you know. So how do you know when this is done? You can take a toothpick, take it right in dead center. And it comes out perfectly clean. So these are definitely done. You'll notice that it's firm when I push on it. And let's try this one. That also comes out pretty clean. So this is done. And we're gonna take these out of the oven and let them cool down. And I'll show you what to do when they're cool. One of our hearts had a very untimely accident. That's another story. But we're gonna work on the other 5. I have a cup of heavy whipping cream that I'm gonna put into our mixer. We'll put our whisk on. We're going to put this up to it. While our heavy cream is mixing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be taking these out of here. Hopefully it'll come out up. Let's actually turn it over. That'll be better. And we're going to cut them in half. And so that'll be 1, 2, and I'll work on the rest. And I'll show you what to do when I'm done. So if you can see, our heavy cream is starting to get a little bit thick. So what we're going to do is we're going to slow it down. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of 10x sugar, or confectioner sugar. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And chocolate sauce. So I'm using a brand called Da Vinci. You can use Hershey's, you can use any type of chocolate sauce you want. I'm going to guess it's probably going to be about 4 tablespoons, maybe 5. I'm going to go with a 1/4 cup of chocolate sauce. So you notice that there's chocolate sauce all along the sides. So we're going to scrape that down into our heavy cream. And if you notice the color, it looks pretty chocolatey, but I think it should be maybe a shade darker. I'm just going to pour a little bit direct. It's going to be obviously a little more than a 1/4 cup. That should probably be good. And once again, I'm going to scrape down the sides so it all gets in there. What we're doing is basically taking a shortcut and making chocolate whipped cream. Now, if you look at it, I don't know if you can see it close. It has like a nice chocolate hue to it. So you can see that it's starting to get thick now. And it's very thick. And it's done. And we're going to put this in a piping bag. Right before it finishes, you should give it a taste. See if it needs more sugar or more chocolate sauce. This is very chocolatey, so it's fine. But if yours needs a little bit more chocolate sauce based on what type of chocolate sauce you're using, feel free to add a little bit more. We'll just make it a little bit more chocolatey. Around the edges first. Good. So see, if you look really closely. See how it's sticking out? I really don't want that, so I'm going to go a little bit more in. That way when I put the bottom on, I might have to fix that. I think I will try to fix it in a minute. That's better. So I definitely have a bit more chocolate whipped cream, and I really don't want to go to waste. And I had made this other cake, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice this in half. This one's just for me to eat, so. And you can never have too much chocolate whipped cream, so why not? There you go. So that's ready. So next thing we're going to do is, you notice how there's whipped cream sticking out over here? So I'm just going to take a knife, get rid of that. Same thing over here. So now we're going to make a chocolate glaze. I have 3 cups of confectioner sugar or 10x sugar. I have 4.5 tablespoons of cocoa powder. I have 3 tablespoons of water, 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla, and 1.5 teaspoons of lemon juice in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cocoa and mix it in with the 10x sugar, or confectioner sugar. Just give that a little bit of a mix. And we're going to take our liquid. And this is basically going to make a nice chocolate glaze, hopefully. Now you notice that this is very, very dry. You notice in the middle, it actually looks nice, but the bottom is very, very dry. Actually, let's just keep mixing it for another minute. So this is definitely too dry. You can add just 1 tablespoon of water. Getting better, but still too dry. You want it to be like a nice glaze. Any place that you have clumps, just kind of give a hit. Now you notice that it's a glaze, but it's way too thick. So we're going to add 1 more tablespoon of water, because it has to be kind of pourable. Now see, when I lift this up, it pours nicely. It's still pretty thick, but it pours nicely, so that should do it. Notice that our hearts are on a cooling rack. Actually, it's an oven rack, but we can use a cooling rack. If you don't have a cooling rack, you can just put it directly onto your sheet pan. A rack is better, that way the extra sauce will drip down. And basically what you want to do, put enough that it drips down the sides. You are definitely best off starting at the top and letting it drip and helping it drip. When I say helping it, like just kind of move it to where it needs to go. And the first one's done. So I'm going to work on the rest of these. Then when it's done, you have to put these in the refrigerator. It does have a fresh whipped cream filling, which means it has to get refrigerated. All right, so now that these are done, so depending on if you need more, you can always lift up the rack and take the stuff on that's on the tray. I still have a bit more in here, so. I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to take some from underneath. And I'm going to throw these in the refrigerator, and I will show you what to do next. The next part of our dessert plate, we're going to make some chocolate covered strawberries. These are white chocolate chips. It's just a bowl filled with them. I'm going to throw them in the microwave for about 1 minute and 10 seconds. I'll start out top with. Maybe. And let's talk about our strawberries. What I've done with the strawberries, so because we're dipping them in chocolate, you cannot wash them, okay? If you wash them, if chocolate gets wet, it seizes up. But you still want to clean them, so what I did is I actually brushed them. Take them, you brush them, and then I stuck a skewer right in the middle, and when we hold it, we're going to hold it like this. The toothpick will, if I don't put the toothpick, this will eventually rip, because they do get very heavy with the chocolate on there. So, our chocolate just came out of the microwave. You can see it's a little melted over here and on the edges. Gonna mix it up. So this is going to have to go back in the microwave for another couple seconds. It's still cool. Chocolate melts at, I believe, 93 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a guess. Don't quote me on it. Maybe 91, 93, something like that. Your body temperature is 98. So that's why, if you remember the old M&M commercials, and melts in your hand, not in your mouth, that's because M&Ms are coated in candy, like it has a sugar coating on it. If it's pure chocolate, it would melt in your hands. But just as all chocolate does, because your body's 98, chocolate melts to 93, put it in your hands, and it will melt. But you can see that this is still clumpy. So I'm going to go for another 20 seconds or so. You don't want to overheat chocolate or it'll burn, and you'll wind up throwing it out. The last thing, you'll notice that there's parchment paper down. You definitely want to be putting the strawberries on preferably parchment paper. If you don't have parchment paper, you can use wax paper, which is definitely more expensive. If you don't have wax paper or parchment, you can always use plastic wrap. But if you put it directly on a plate, the chocolate's going to stick. So you can't put it directly on a plate or directly on a sheet pan. Like I said, first choice is this, but you can always use plastic wrap. So first off, is the chocolate warm? If you touch it to your upper lip, like so, this is one of the most sensitive spots of your body. Is it warm or is it cool? This is still a little bit cool, which means it's not tempered right. I do have a video on tempering chocolate if you're interested in watching that. I'm going to put it in just for another few seconds. The chocolate that I'm using, Callebaut chocolate. And this is white. These are what they call Callebaut. You can use a block form and just chop it, but these are chips. They already come chopped. So it's definitely warmer. I can feel it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a couple of chocolate chips and stir it in for tempering reasons. If you don't know what tempering chocolate is, like I said, I do have a video on it. I'm not going to go into it here because it's a little bit lengthy. A brief explanation is inside chocolate is something called cocoa butter. The cocoa butter separates out when chocolate isn't tempered right. If you've ever seen chocolate with white streaks in it, that means it's lost its temper, basically. And that's pretty good. So what we're going to do, these, we're just going to go straight down. Hopefully the bowl's deep enough. That's like one of the most important things, making sure that the bowl is deep enough. Now you notice I'm going to get some of the chocolate off. So you're going to do it on a plate. Make sure, I'm only doing a few strawberries, so doing it on a plate should be fine. But make sure it goes on the flat part of the plate and not where it's slanted. And also make sure that they're not touching each other. Make sure you don't have the green. And once again, when you're working with chocolate, you want to make sure everything is perfectly dry. If you get even a couple drops of water in here, the chocolate will seize up and you'll literally wind up throwing it out and starting again. So you want to make sure that the bowl is dry to start out with. You want to make sure your hands are dry. This one I think we'll put on the edge. Will that stay? Yes. And these I'm going to stick in the refrigerator. And when these are dry, we'll do the milk chocolate. So while those strawberries are cooling, I'm going to put this in the microwave. This is also Callebaut, and this is milk chocolate. And I'm going to put this in the microwave for about a minute and 10 seconds, and I'll show you what it looks like. So our milk chocolate was in the microwave for just over a minute and 10 seconds. And you'll see that's starting to melt, but not really melted. So I'm going to put it in for another 20 seconds once again. You want to make sure that you stir it in between, because what happens is if you don't stir it, you have a better chance of the chocolate actually burning. So I'm going to put this in here for 20 seconds. We'll go. The next thing we're going to work on is we want some raspberry sauce. So I have some raspberries that I've washed. And I'm going to put this on the stove. I'm going to put just a drop of water in here. So when I cook the raspberries, it has some liquid in there. I'm going to throw just a drop in. You'll see there's just a little bit of liquid. And then I'm going to put this up to heat on low. Actually medium. And I'll show you what it looks like in a few minutes. So our chocolate was in the microwave. Another 20 seconds. We give it a stir. So I can feel it's still a little bit cool. So I'm going to put it in for like literally another 15 seconds, 20 seconds. Once again, you don't want to overdo it because you will burn it. So now, as I touch the bowl feels a bit warm. It is a little bit warm. So I'm going to take just a couple of Callebaut, throw it in, mix it up. And once again, this is to temper it. So next thing, we're going to be dipping these in the milk chocolate, but not just straight in. I'm going to come over here. You want to be like, imagine you're driving a car and you're taking the steering wheel this way and this way. You're going to steer with just the right hand. I know that's not how you're supposed to drive, but we're going to drive with just one hand. And what we're going to do is, so you're going to start off here, and you want to dip from here to here. So let's break that off a little bit. So from here, and then you're going to turn, sharp turn, and you're going to do the other side. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. Once again, you're going to start here, and then you're going to go like this, just like driving a car. 1, 2. And we'll do it one more time, as our cameraman said so. 1, 2. And then we're going to do all of them, and I'll show you what they look like. So I finished with the strawberries and I put them in the refrigerator. And I'm going to take a piece about 6 inches, maybe, approximately. You can use a scissor, I'm just using a sharp knife, whatever works for you. And this is parchment paper. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cut it at an angle. So you get that. You notice that there's 3 points on here. There's a point here, there's a point here, there's a point here. And this is called a right angle, where it's exactly 90 degrees. The point of our piping bag, which is what we're making, could be directly opposite the right angle. So if you were to draw a straight line right here, this is where the point is going to be. And what you're going to do is you're going to take this part, fold it over, and you'll see how there's a point starting there. So the point is opposite this right angle. And you want to kind of make a cone. But you want to make sure that the point remains a point. So just keep going round and round. Now see how that's a very, very big point? So once you're almost done, by going like this, you'll see I'm just moving my fingers. See how that makes the point get smaller? And you want a pretty small, pretty fine point, because you're going to be piping chocolate. So once you have the point that you want, you take this piece, fold it in, like so, and then fold it over. And you have a piping bag. We're going to give our chocolate a stir. We're going to put some chocolate in here. You don't want to overfill this because all the chocolate will come out the top. I'm just going to put it on here to work with. Now you notice that there's the creases over here. So you want to fold towards the crease. And what that does is it actually tightens the bag a little bit. So now we're going to get our strawberries. Now, before you pipe on the strawberries, I'd recommend you try it on some parchment paper or in paper towel. What we're going to do, imagine drawing an 8. But now we're going to make this and the top flat. So we're going to go straight, down, across like a Z, and then across. And fill it in. And that gives you a bow tie. So once again, down, across. It's like actually a sideways Z. And then across. Fill it in. And you have a bow tie. Like so. Now let's apply. I'm going to have space for 4 buttons. I do 4 buttons. I feel like 4 looks better than 3. But occasionally I only have space for 3, so I do 3. Other things that sometimes people do is they'll dip it just in white chocolate, and then they'll take a piping bag like what I just made, and what they do is they just do lines going across. Sometimes they'll dip it in milk chocolate and do white lines going across. That's also very common to see that a lot. done the exact same way, but you're just dipping it in one color chocolate and then just doing lines. You can also dip it in milk chocolate and then dip it in shredded coconut. You can dip it in chopped walnuts. And our strawberries are done. Actually, one last thing. I'm gonna pull out the toothpicks and then I'm gonna put these in the refrigerator to set. What do you guys think? They're adorable, aren't they? So our raspberries were cooking. You'll notice that they're quite mushy, which is what we want. Now, raspberries are very, very tart. A lot of pastry chefs, they like a tart sauce. I don't like the sauce so tart. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add some 10x sugar. And I generally go a little bit heavier than what most pastry chefs would say. As I said, I like it sweet. When I've tasted it and it's too tart, I don't like it with my desserts. You could use a food processor, you could use a blender. If you do a large amount, you could use a stick blender. So I've mixed it up. You can see it's still kind of on the thick side. And I tasted it actually needs a little bit more sugar, believe it or not. And the sugar, when it melts, this is still hot. When it melts, it might thin it out. If it doesn't thin it out, then I'll have to add some water. So this is still a bit on the thick side. So I want more of a sauce consistency. So I'm going to add a little bit of cold water. It's still a little thick. Once it cools, it might actually thicken even more. And at that point, I'll add just a little bit more cold water if it needs it. So now we're going to plate up our dessert. And what I've done is I printed out a stencil of 2 hearts. And if you look at this copy, what I did was I put this up against a cardboard box and used a box cutter. And I cut out the top one and the arrow. So what we're going to do is we're going to place this on a plate. And you want to try to make sure, see this beveled edge? You want to make sure that the arrow is not inside the beveled edge, because what's going to happen is we're going to be covering this with cocoa powder. So if this is on a slant, the cocoa powder is going to slide down. So you want to make sure it's flat. So what we're going to do, I want to try to make sure it's in the middle of the plate. And you want to try not to move it. Now, if you're doing this on a black plate, you can do it with confectioner's sugar as opposed to cocoa powder. There you go. Except for I just made a mess of the counter, but we don't clean the counter. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take our dessert, like that, like so. Let's take our raspberry sauce. We're going to outline part of the heart. And then we're going to do the same thing on the upper part over here. And then let's do a couple large dots. We'll do one a little bit smaller and smaller. And let's do the same thing over here. Large first, a little smaller, a little smaller. Let's do the strawberry over here and the strawberry over here. Voila. So we just got a special guest chef, and he's going to be, I don't know if he's going to be tasting the food or not, but anyway, say hi. Hi. This is Baby Owen, everyone. Some of you have seen him before. Anyway, hi, Baby Owen. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to cut this in half with one hand. Or I'll try to use 2 hands, I guess. I don't know if it's going to cut now, but. Or so I want you to see what it looks like inside. I'm going to have to force this down because I really don't like chocolate. Mmm. That is really, really, really good. Mmm, really, really, really good. Yummy. All right. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed my video. Thank you so much for watching. Be safe, everyone, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye. Bye-bye.